We are live. Okay. So we are here. I am here with my friend Cam and my friend Alicia to talk about not only the book, Matilda, Empress Warrior Queen, she didn't see, yeah, but also just her as a person. So I think you two both listened to the audiobook and I read the book.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. So, first, we should probably give some background information. Um, First of all, let's talk about who the heck Matilda even is. Because most people, I don't think, probably don't know. Um, Matilda was the only surviving legitimate heir of Henry the First back in the 1100s. So let's just take a moment to sort of let's sink in how long ago that was. It was 900 years ago. It was a long time ago. And she was his daughter. She had a brother who died in one of the worst maritime disasters in history called the White Ship, which led to a war called the Anarchy, which is what this book mostly revolves around, I would say. Revolves around the war. And anybody who has watched this channel knows that I love Ken Follett for several reasons, but Pillars of the Earth actually takes place during the war that Matilda, I guess we could say, started. I don't know. Would we say she started the
It
war?
was Stephen's fault. It's all Stephen's fault. Oathbreaker Stephen.
Yeah. So Stephen was her cousin who crowned himself king. Um, Even though he probably didn't have any right at all. He claimed it was because he was grandson of William the Conqueror, but he was grandson through a daughter and the king's nephew. So he, what is this? Came to troll this as requested, too sleepy now. Okay then, I have a feeling I know who that is. But anyway, um, um, yeah, so I guess we could say she started the war because Henry, her father, had made the barons and a bunch of other people swear allegiance to her, but then they just reneged on it as soon as Henry died from food poisoning. And as you can see in the little corner right there, I think I'm pointing to it, my thing says spawn of Matilda. That's because she's one of my ancestors. So.
Really?
Well, my last name's Norman, and
Okay.
yeah, so
That's cool.
technically, yeah, I descend from this dynasty, I guess. And another thing that is relevant towards Matilda, she is basically the mother of the Plantagenet dynasty, because her son became Henry II, who was the first Plantagenet king, which I'm sure, Frenchies say it differently, good for them. But yeah, so this was a civil war. I think all three of us are Americans, or at least are you Canadian?
No, I'm American.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking,
Unfortunately.
yeah. So America, we get bashed for our civil war, but England had at least three that I know of,
No, we only
and
had one.
yeah, they had a lot. So I think this is the first significant one. And Cameron, you've read the book When Christ and His Saints Left. I read it a long time ago, and we know that title comes from not the deeds of Stephen, which is like quoted over and over again, but it's like the Peterborough Chronicle or something.
Yeah, there's a few of them. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, said it was so bad it felt like Christ and all his saints left. That's how bad
yeah.
the fight was.
I was the guy who didn't live to see the end of the anarchy. I can't remember his name. Was it? I can't remember his name. I want to say Geoffrey of Monmouth, but I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong.
Was the one who wrote that?
I don't quote me on that. It was
I won't.
someone from somewhere. I know
Someone
that.
from somewhere wrote that, yes. But yeah, so there have been really two main adaptations, or I guess fictionalizations, of her life. When Christ and His Saints and The Pillars of the Earth, which is I'm gonna call the big one. And in the book, she's not really a character, but in the miniseries, she is. She's awesome in the miniseries.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I don't
saw the
remember.
miniseries first. I didn't even know it was a book when I was a teenager.
The miniseries is better. But
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, read the book before you watch the miniseries because you might be disappointed.
The
But yeah, the
miniseries is
miniseries is
better
great.
than the book, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got Eddie
Yeah.
Redmayne in it, um, a bunch of other people. So,
Yeah, 'cause
Rupert,
I don't remember much of Matilda in Pillars of the Earth. I remember Stephen. I remember
yeah.
when, uh,
Stephen makes an appearance. Matilda
yeah,
is kind of just talked about.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Because
But
what
Stephen's
Prior
actually in
Phillips'
the book.
brother
Stephen,
works for Matilda or something like
mhm.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and Stephen's brother Henry appears in it too, the monk. And
Okay.
one other thing I noted that was in this book was that guy who's often called the perfect knight, William of
William Marshall.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Yeah, William Marshall.
Oh, is it him or is it his great grandfather? Because
From
it was William. Because I thought when I heard William Marshall, I thought the same thing. But I was like, wait, he helped. He was regent of England in like 1217 or something. I'm like, he would have been
yeah,
way too old.
yeah,
So the only reason I know that is because I read When Christ and His Saints Slept right before I read this book. So
yeah,
Oh, that
uh,
probably helped.
yeah, it was neat to see
yeah,
how closely Sharon Penman followed his, like it was almost like reading a history book. It was really
yeah.
accurate.
I think somebody in the Historathon Discord was like, I could tell it was some research. I might as well just read a nonfiction
Yeah,
book.
yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
too, but it was still I still recommend it. But there's a scene where Stephen is about to hang William Marshall's son, William Marshall, and he doesn't, and that happens to be the William Marshall in 1217 who becomes regent, who is the greatest knight. So in
Yeah.
1217, so I was like, oh, okay,
Because I
but he
saw
almost
the name
got
and
killed.
I
But
was like, and they're like lauding him about how he had such an amazing life. I was like, is this the same guy? But
yeah, yeah, it's his.
it's not. It's
Yeah,
not. I just looked
the
it up. It's not
the
the
A
same.
relative.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I think the chronicle about William Marshall is about the greatest knight, but the William Marshall that helped Matilda was his grandfather or father, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just looked it up. It said something about him in the Magna Carta, which I know was
Yeah,
not in this century.
yeah.
No.
That was, yeah. So, first of all, we can do like a little mini review of the book. Who narrated it? Was it female, male?
It was female.
It
Yeah,
was female.
it was
Okay,
It was
I think,
very dryly narrated.
okay.
yeah,
And that's my biggest complaint is I was interested in what she was saying. It was how she was saying it that was the biggest problem for me.
it
You
was very
know,
matter of factly.
Yeah.
yeah, and this was published by Yale University Press. I don't think it had like the biggest budget, definitely not the biggest like
Hmm.
circulation, University Press, bare bones, we do what we do.
University presses usually don't have a lot of circulation.
No.
Yeah,
No.
very
So
neat.
this was from Yale University Press, and it's just so hard to find stuff about Matilda. And that was one of the things I put in the Discord that we could probably talk about today is just why she's so little known when, as we read this book, she did a whole lot in not a very
I
long
had
time.
no idea who she was until you told me about the book.
Yeah. Partially, it might be because, this was 1,000 years ago, almost literally. It was like 900 years ago. So
Yeah.
a lot's happened since then. And I actually find when I like start telling people about this war, they're like, "Oh, is that the War of the Roses?"
Hmm.
So I mean, the War of the Roses was 400 years later, 300 years later. So I think this was before the age of chivalry. This was a very dark time. This is called the Gothic period. And I think this was kind of before knights were glorified. Knights were just kind of a necessity back then. It talks about the weapons they would use. There's no plate armor. They're not wearing standards yet. And I part of it, I think, is the age, 900 years ago almost. And just the fact that it's not as glamorous as something like the Hundred Years' War or the Wars of the Roses.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alicia, you said you had no idea who this person was. And I like that I was able to introduce you to her. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
And the narrator, if you're curious, is Jennifer M. Dixon.
okay. Okay. So there's another book that both me and Cam read that goes into a little bit about Matilda, the White Ship, which was written
Yeah.
by Princess Diana's brother. That
Oh,
one's a little bit
Oh,
more
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I didn't know.
okay.
Yeah, it's Princess Diana's brother.
He's a
But that
good
one
writer.
goes into it a little bit, and it's like it's kind of a misnomer because it's not really about the White Ship, was it?
No, it's like
It was more
everything
so
leading up
about
to
the
it and
war.
everything after it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was in there, but it wasn't. I mean, it was more than
yeah,
just the white ship.
yeah. And the reason they say it sank is because everybody was drunk and having too good of a time. So,
Yep.
yeah. But
Yep.
they said that William Atling, whatever, the son of Henry the First, the only legitimate heir, the reason he died wasn't because he was super drunk. It was because he dove into the freezing water to save his sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not sure about that.
Or he could have just dove into the water because he was drunk.
Yeah.
Probably.
I've been around enough drunk people to know that
Yeah.
happens.
Well, whose word? Whose witness are they going on? Is it
Yeah,
the
there was one
butcher that
survivor, wasn't there?
survived? They're gonna take his word for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just make him look more noble. You know, he wasn't the 19-year-old or 18, 17. I don't know. He was a teenager. Like,
Yeah.
that is like prime drinking, partying age. Let's face it.
Of course.
And especially back then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when your life expectancy is what, 35?
Something like that. And water's not really safe to drink.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hey, we got beer. And so, yeah. This is definitely a pro Matilda.
Oh yeah.
Look at it. I wouldn't say she was perfect. She was obviously very headstrong, sometimes didn't make the best decisions. My favorite part in describing her actions was how it was after the Battle of Lincoln. I'm not quite sure which siege it was. She was walled up a few times. Um, where she and her buddies all dressed in white in the night and
The
snuck
Oxford,
away.
and they fled from Oxford.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But, so we've established almost no one knows about Matilda. And this, why do we think this war is so forgotten?
Well, like you said, it's dark and dirty, and you don't really have a clear good guy, bad guy,
Yeah,
and you don't really have a clear good guy, bad guy in the War of the Roses. But at least you have the pageantry, you have the chivalry, you have the glamorous knights, the troubadours singing about it, all that kind of stuff. But this is just a darker, dreary, muddied, people switching sides back and forth. Who's all that kind of stuff.
and it could also, I honestly just lost my train of thought. Oh, what I was going to say is, Alicia's like, what's wrong with you?
No, it happens to me all the time. It makes me
yeah.
feel better that I'm not the only one.
So, when we look at like Hollywood portrayals of like knights, even when it comes to like the 15th century, everything's really dark and gray and gross and muddy and not beautiful, colorful the way it actually would have been in the 14th century or 15th century. But here, I think this is probably what in reality we would expect if we went and were just like, hey, let's pitch attention and watch a medieval battle type thing. I think if we were dropped into the War of the Roses or the Hundred Years' War, we would be shocked at just how joyful and colorful everything looked and just how gaudy. But this was a very dark, muddy time, probably pretty hard to tell friend from foe since they didn't wear uniforms or standards. But one thing we were able to see in this book is that the goal wasn't necessarily to kill the enemy, it was more to capture them and hold them as some kind of ransom.
That part was interesting because usually you hear about them like putting people in jail to kill them, and it was completely the opposite.
Yeah, because, I really loved the chess analogies in here. I mean, we all know, like, war's a game of chess type thing, but there were literally, like, queens, bishops, kings, all fighting for the center of the board, which could have been the English crown, and we talked about the pawns. But one thing I thought was interesting was just how many men Matilda was able to get on her side. I mean, obviously her biggest supporter was her brother, who, I mean,
That's how it
gonna
should
take
be.
her side. Yeah,
Yeah.
her half brother,
Well,
illegitimate half brother.
not at once, not at first off. She had to coax him around
Convincing.
there a little bit.
Yeah,
Or
it's true.
I think what did she talk about in this book where maybe he secretly was on her side, but he had to play for time and like, oh
Yeah.
well, that after the fact we're gonna write that in or what? But yeah, it was. I like Robert of Gloucester. He's a good character.
He is. He was Henry's oldest son,
Yeah.
illegitimate, but also his oldest child. And he was close with his father, and his father's wishes were to have everything pass on to Matilda, which again I thought was interesting because I mean, didn't he have grandchildren by that time or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe it was okay, yeah, because Henry II wasn't like from the same dynasty. It's passed down through father,
Mm-hmm.
but he would have had to know that it would have gone from Matilda to Henry eventually. So I find it a little bit confusing why he would have left it to Matilda. I mean, would he have known it would have caused issues? And at the same time, it just wasn't done. Yeah, okay. We know this, we're not entirely sure how to fix it. Sorry, Fitz. But yeah, it has like a little robot sound at the other side. We're not really sure who it is. Sorry. So hope you can bear with us. But Fitz is Guinea Vision. She makes guinea pig videos. Check out her channel.
Aw.
Great caregiver of the guinea pigs. So
I think maybe Henry didn't want to give it to Henry II because then he was worried that Geoffrey would have been regent, and he didn't want that because all the English people didn't like Geoffrey Plantagenet. That's what I think she said in the book.
That's the only thing that would make sense then.
Yeah, it would. And well, Geoffrey Plantagenet was also like 11 years younger than Matilda, so I feel kind of sorry for Matilda. I think she had to marry like a 14-year-old boy at one point.
He was 13 and she was 25. Just
yeah.
Like I know I'm looking at it in today's standards, but still disgusting. And like she met her first husband when he was 8.
Yeah.
Like when she was 8, and I'm just like, ew, he's in his 20s. That's just.
That was standard practice. They would go marry they would marry to sort of, I don't know if you play Crusader Kings, Camp does, but it's like you betroth, you marry, you send them to sort of get education, and then once they're old enough to like, you know,
do the thing.
That's when it's sealed. That's why
for alliances. Well, I think Henry wanted the who needed the Henry? Yeah, Henry is Matilda's father, but she married Emperor Henry, and he wanted Emperor Henry wanted the dowry that came with her because he needed money because of the investiture controversy going on in the Holy Roman Empire. He was at war with the Pope, and I actually like the very beginning of the book when it talked about her ruling in the Holy Roman Empire and Italy. I had no idea she was like basically regent in Italy on her husband's behalf, Emperor Henry V.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
That was I like learning about that stuff.
That part was to me the most interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was neat.
I like the battle parts, the parts of her with the espionage and taking prisoners and secreting herself in the night amongst the snow.
Yeah.
But one of the I guess the main battle that everybody knows from this war was the battle in either 1140 or 1141, the Battle of Lincoln, where she captured Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting that even while she had Stephen, things went south towards the end of that year, and she wasn't necessarily winning the war, even though she had the King of England in her possession. And what this book argues is it was mostly due to, confusingly, Matilda, Stephen's wife, who was also named Matilda.
That also didn't help with just having the audiobook. I was like, everyone's named Matilda and Henry. This is not helping.
Yeah. historically, one of the reasons for that was that, like, in order to show your loyalty to people, you would name your children after them. So, yeah. So we get to the War of the Roses. There's a million Edwards and Elizabeths, but
Yeah.
this is
That's why I wish I had a physical copy because I could like mark it up and be like, oh, this person's this person, this and just having the audio, I'm like, who is who? And
yeah.
someone's
I even had to
marrying
go
another
back.
Matilda, and I'm just like, I'm so confused. And it didn't help the audiobook narrator didn't specify either,
Mhm.
which didn't
Some
help.
places she's referred to as Matilde. I mean,
A mod.
Maud,
yeah,
Maud.
Maud
And
is
Yeah.
that
referred
threw me off
to.
too. I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
sometimes she's referred to as Empress Maud because I guess Maud was a nickname.
Mhm.
But Stephen's wife Matilda is sometimes referred to as Mathilde,
Yeah.
Mathilde, because she was French or something. I don't know. But another sort of character who appears in here that I thought was pretty cool was Wolf, who is the father of the Angevin kings, which we were talking about William Marshall. I think his king was King John, bad King John.
Yeah.
And so he was an Angevin. So we're really seeing kind of like the top of the family tree, like we can imagine it as like coming down, 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 like all these people hundreds of years before, the Magna Carta, the Wars of the Roses, the Hundred Years' War. It's like these were the unknowing kind of orchestrators of all that in a way. Because had Matilda not married Henry Plantagenet, we wouldn't have had the Angevins. We wouldn't have had
You wouldn't have had
Richard.
100 years war.
No,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have had Richard II, who was crazy and ultimately caused the War of the Roses. So it's incredible how significant this one woman's life was in history. Um, Yet she's just kind of a blip between things like the Hundred Years' War and the Norman Conquest.
Mhm.
Like, she was the granddaughter of William the Conqueror, who everyone knows about, and she was the mother of the Plantagenet dynasty, who everyone knows about. But sandwiched between that is just this one little woman who, I'm going to say, was fairly successful in her endeavors. I don't know if we can say she won in the end. That's something we could talk about. But if we look as far as notoriety, I mean, definitely she doesn't get her due. But as far as historical significance, yeah, she beats out Stephen big time with her progeny.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah. I'd say she wins in the end.
Yeah.
But I
So
guess
for those
I'm
who don't know,
biased.
the way the war ends is that Matilda gives up her own claim, and she makes a pact with Stephen that when Stephen dies, her son is going to become the king of England. So she didn't get what she wanted in the end, so she didn't get to be this queen, which is also interesting the way it talks about queens, how queen just means wife of the king. So
Yeah.
we've got like queen regent, queen, dowager queen, queen consort. It's like she didn't want to be a queen. She wanted to be a sort of like female king
Yeah.
in the sense that she would rule herself.
Mhm.
And that's probably why she continued to be known as empress instead of queen. Because
I mean, I
queen just
wouldn't
had
give up the title.
no.
Like it's a badass title. I wouldn't give it up.
Yeah. But queen just had a different meaning back then than it does now.
I think she said there's no word for like a female king.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't
Who rules in their own right.
Yeah. And that's something that I every time the narrator would quote from the chronicle, it would say like, Maud did something headstrong and of her own will, and then
Yeah,
two lines down, Matilda did something strong on her
That's
own.
what was
And
making me
she's
so confused.
yeah.
I was like,
okay,
what?
I think it was the Chronicle of the Deeds of Stephen. That's what
Yeah.
That's what it was written like. Bad Maud up here, one line down. Good Matilda down here, doing the same exact thing. Like, is he just the author? Is he just like winking at the person reading it? Like, hey, because who was that written? Who wrote the Deeds of Stephen? Because Stephen was dead when it was finished. So who? I'm like, was it Henry's?
I
Who was
looked
the
for a
sister?
copy because I wanted to read it. There's like an $80 copy.
Yeah.
It I don't know who originally wrote it. It's a mid 12th century English history by an anonymous author.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
unknown.
But I was like,
Yeah.
who wrote? Who was his audience? Like when the Romans commissioned authors, they would have, it'd be biased towards the current emperor. So anything that the previous emperor did, he was maligned, and so maybe whoever commissioned it wanted to malign Steve. I don't know. I was thinking probably too deep into it, thinking that he just winking at the audience or whoever was supposed to be reading it, thinking,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I'm
mean,
probably looking too deep into it.
it's called The Deeds of Stephen, so I mean, Matilda's definitely the villain if you're on Stephen's
Yeah,
side.
Yeah.
for
I,
sure.
I mean, we don't know who wrote it or who it was written for. If it was just like a general chronicler, it was the mid 12th century after Stephen died, and back then monks were the ones who scribed. I mean, for all we know, him and his brother. You know,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
we just don't know. So,
yeah.
but yeah, um, Matilda, Empress, Queen, Warrior. One thing they were also talking about was how Queen or Matilda wouldn't have been able to lead the army.
Mm-hmm.
I guess not just because she was female, but there were just like practical limits. Like during one of these battles, she was pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about her riding astride, like straddling her horse, like you ride it, and not riding side saddle as she was doing things like that as a man would do.
But
Um,
I read, I think, at the end of when the Saints slept, the author Penman has a little note that says she didn't make a big deal about that because side saddle wasn't invented till afterwards.
yeah,
She would have been riding normal anyways, regardless.
it does say though in the contemporary sources that they're talking about her riding astride. I wonder if it was like a motorcycle where the women would ride on the back or something. But yeah, I mean there was really no side saddle, and we can actually see the way these medieval saddles were,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to see. But there's like a strap on the back, so it's like you can't turn sideways in this.
Yeah.
So I don't. I,
And
that
as
was
someone
another
who
thing.
used to ride horses, side saddle is not fun to
Yeah,
You're
I
not
sit
can't
in.
even like
imagine.
sitting on the horse.
No,
when you
you feel like you're gonna fall off the whole
Yeah.
entire time. I was like, no, switch it out. Give me a normal one, and I was fine. Like
Mhm.
I can't do it. I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
like
do it.
horses. I'm just gonna say I was bitten by one as a child, and I just don't like. So I
That's
stay
fair.
away from them. I like cows, but I don't like horses. So yeah,
I
one thing
think
also
you
that
could
was
say that Matilda
infiltration.
was like ahead of her time, being a general who doesn't fight, but she sits back. Modern day generals sit back
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's a
command,
good
and
point.
so
Yeah,
that's also something you could
Armchair.
say. Yeah,
yeah,
like the armchair
the
general. Yeah.
armchair general. But yeah. So what do we think? Because she's pitted against the other Matilda, Stephen's wife, and Stephen's wife is always lauded for how gracious she was in her machinations, acting on her husband's behalf, basically doing the same thing our Matilda, Empress Maud, was doing. It's just she wasn't doing it on someone else's behalf.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess that made a difference to them.
I
But
think Matilda wasn't the typical wife. Like, yes, she was a wife, but she wasn't how men saw women back then. So they're painting her a certain way because they don't like her.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. And I don't know, I guess I would take this definitely as an insult if someone was like, "Oh, you're acting like a man wanting to do this." Um, I, but in the context of this, I didn't really take it as being insulting to Matilda, even though it probably was meant to be. I was like, "Yeah, you go, girl. Keep
She
it."
probably took it as a compliment.
I mean, maybe it's like, "Yeah, I told you I could do it." But I think one thing too that was so jarring about this war is that it mentioned in The White Ship and another book I read called Lost Heirs of the Medieval Crown, which talks about Stephen's son Eustace
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. And during the reign of Henry I, it said that England was so safe a woman could walk naked with a chest of gold through England unmolested. Meaning
They
like
said the same thing about the Mongol Empire too when Genghis Khan conquered it, or one of his, one of his
yeah.
successors. They said the same thing. Yeah.
But then
Interesting.
all hell breaks loose. Like this war was like seriously, because it talks about how Matilda wasn't able to take castles by frontal assault, just because I don't remember the exact reason, but they talked about guerrilla warfare, guerrilla tactics. I'm like, how does that work in medieval England? Like, go hide in the trees, I guess, and just ambush a raid or something. I don't know, but yeah,
Sabotage supply chains and stuff like this, and cutting off harbors and
yeah.
access points, that kind of thing. I guess.
Yeah. So, let's talk about. Let me see. I had written some notes here. So, let's see. Why do we think she was able to get so much male backing?
Well, I mean, you had everyone swear to her when her father, was still alive. So you had all those people who didn't break their oaths, and then, of course, you had people going back and forth, so they see which way the wind's going, and then
Yeah.
they jump on board. But I don't. That's what I would think. You know,
Just people holding to their oaths, you think?
some of the ones that did, yeah, and the ones
Yeah,
that
and
we're
then
just
just
coming back to the
seeing,
fold or
yeah,
whatever.
seeing who was winning and then
Hmm.
coming towards her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I guess we can do. I don't think the stream is going to last that long, but what we can do is how about we give little mini reviews of the book, Matilda, Empress, Queen, Warrior. I guess I'll go first. I can see how it would be rough to listen to as an audiobook, especially with the million different names going on. One thing about this book, too, is that there are not sources cited like in footnotes. It's all in the back.
That's what I was going to ask you because you had a physical copy. If it was
No, it's not. It's
okay.
just big.
Oh,
Long.
that would drive me nuts.
Well, lucky for me, I already knew a lot about what was going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, again, I claim these people as my ancestors, spawn of Matilda right here, and I really love Matilda. I'm lucky that I knew about her, mostly from Ken Follett. So, yeah, what do you actually remember about the Pillars of the Earth miniseries, Alicia?
Not much. I was like 13 when it came out, so I don't remember much. I remember mainly I checked it out because of who was in it. Like I was like everybody and their mother's in this thing.
Yeah,
Like I was
yeah.
like I'm curious. And I wasn't as big of I always read, but I wasn't as big of a reader at the time, and I was like, wow, this is a book. And then I remember picking it up in the bookstore and seeing how chunky it was. I was like, no.
You
Not
know,
happening.
I think Cam agrees that Ken Follett books read pretty fast.
Yeah, I listened to it actually. It
Yeah,
was like it was the book that got me back into reading, and I did it on
Ooh, I
Audible, and
love
I
hearing
just
that.
yeah, it's
it was one of those books I listened on my commute to work and back, and I get home and just sit on the couch and just stare at the wall and listen to this. Like, oh, it was
it,
so good. Like I listened to all four that were out in the series that year, like all year, it was nothing but
we
favorite.
need a like Netflix, Hulu, whatever, Apple Plus, Kingsbridge
Oh yeah,
series.
yeah,
Because the second book, it is a series, Alicia, which I'm not sure you knew, but there's one that takes place during the Hundred Years' War. There's one that takes place during like Elizabethan England,
Okay.
and then
Because that's
there,
like Henry VIII is like my favorite time period,
it's right
and
after Henry
Elizabeth.
VIII.
it's right
So
after
I
Yeah.
that.
love that. That's my jam.
It's
That's
that's probably the best one, honestly. It's the most different than all the other
yeah, I
ones
agree.
prior.
But
Yeah.
a lot of people, for the reason Cam and I love it, actually dislike it
Yeah.
for the same reason, because it takes place like all around the globe. There's a lot of
Yeah.
like royal navy.
Kingsbridge is
It's the age of
hardly in the book.
exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kingsbridge is hardly in the book, and it's a Kingsbridge novel. It's like, what, you're there for 2 chapters and you're
yeah,
the rest of the world? It's great.
yeah,
I'll
Globe
check out.
trotting.
That sounds like
Yeah.
my kind of
Yeah.
brain candy.
yeah.
Really good.
It mentions it mentions the previous inhabitants of Kingsbridge, which, you know, I do kind of roll my eyes about out that. I'm like, okay, you know who your ancestors were like 400 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a long time, and you're still talking about these people's love story, but okay.
They're
But
like little Easter eggs. Like, oh, you
yeah,
know this because you read the book before.
yeah, you can
Oh,
definitely read them as
that's all it
standalone.
is. You could
Okay,
read it in any order you wanted, but
that was going to be my next question because I do own Pillars of the Earth. I've owned the paperback for a gajillion years, but I haven't
it's
read
one
it.
of my favorite books. Like it's up there. I love it to death.
And I
But
So
love that
also,
it's a big floppy paperback because I love
yeah,
the just they
but
stay
the thing
open.
too about Ken Follett, I mean, it was obviously really well researched, but at the same time, it was just really weird.
he's a weird
Really
guy.
weird.
But yeah, it was the adventure. The scope is grand. It's the characters. Like he writes villains you love to hate
Mhm.
and star-crossed lovers, and that's all he knows.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's what I don't like about it. If you
yeah.
read one book, one Ken Follett book, you read them all, basically.
Oh, are they all very
It's the
It's
same story. I mean,
cut
if
and
you look
paste?
at those books have a story, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's the same thing over and over again.
Like it's still enjoyable to see. I know where these characters are going to end up together, but I'm going to see how they're going to get there. That's enjoyable. So it still
Yeah.
is enjoyable in that way, but it's like, oh, there's a bad guy at the very beginning. Oh, we're going to hate him.
Yeah,
Okay. There's no like redemption. There's no,
no.
a good guy turning bad. No, that never happens. Always bad to the end. Okay, and they
There's
die.
no gray. It's always one
Yeah,
or the other.
yeah,
And
When
that's why
exactly.
it's
basically
really
life is a
accessible.
10-gallon gray hat.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really accessible to people who don't read historical fiction, I would say, too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Basically, because that historical fiction is kind of similar to fantasy in that it can be really, really classic, like Wheel of Time, like we know what's going on, or it can
Yeah.
just be super out there craziness.
I'm picky with my historical fiction because I've read some really bad historical fiction.
Ooh, what's the bad one you've read?
I just what was that called? It you know what I'm going to use your quote cuz it's the biggest thing that bothers me. I tried to read Boudica.
Oh yeah,
I really find her interesting like as an actual person.
hmm
yes.
But like I was so bored and nothing was happening like a couple hundred pages in and
Was
I'm
it
like
Utica or Dreaming the Eagle?
it was the first one, whatever I think that's Dreaming the Eagle.
Yeah, so there's a new one that came out called Boudica, and then Dreaming the Eagle's old.
Okay.
I had
Well,
trouble. I started listening to Dreaming the Eagle. I didn't know who Boudica was, but I mean, Matilda, maybe she was embodying Boudica in a way. Like
yeah.
everyone knows about Boudica
It,
except me. Um, but yeah, I also know how Boudica's story ends, and I was upset to learn that. They're like, he's been around for 2,000 years. You should know. I'm like, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm preoccupied with Matilda. She's my badass, but I couldn't understand why it was about Boudica, but they kept talking about this woman named Graica.
see, that's my point. It's like don't call it that if that's not what you're going to focus on. That
Okay,
bothers me.
so Boudica, someone told me this. Boudica is a title. It's not her name.
Okay, so
I
like
don't
Queen
think
King.
so. I think no, Boudica was her name. That
Oh,
was her
okay,
name.
never mind
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
No, my friend's
She's
just
from
wrong.
the tribe of the Iceni tribe in eastern England. That's where they were.
I think Cam, in your book, so Cam wrote a book. Do you have it with you?
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
So
give me the title.
shameless
Cam's
plug.
book takes a lot of Boudica.
Yeah, it's well, the name in the book is actually pronounced or spelled Boa de Saya, and the only
Yeah.
people that will know that is because when they first, historians way back in the day, they discovered, were researching and finding her name that was a misspelling of her name back in like the 1800s, 1700s, whenever they were unearthing her remains or something of in that part of England. They oh, this is Boa de Saya, and then it came out, oh no, that was spelled wrong. It's actually Boudica. So I
As
took the
someone who has their last name regularly misspelled, I understand that.
yeah, but I thought, oh, okay, Boa de Saya is wrong. I'll use that name for a character in my book. So that's what I
You'll have
did.
to
It
send me
also
you'll have
has,
to send me the link to that because that sounds like something I would
Yes,
totally
it
dig
also
into.
has a
basically
Ken Follett reference in there.
yes.
Yay!
There's a couple Ken Follett references
Yeah.
in here. Yeah, yeah. So
It
it's
sounds like my jam.
it's basically a low historical fantasy. That's how I would put it. There's hardly any no magic. It was basically I like history, so I just put all the greatest hits of history together, and I make up my own world, so I don't have to do any research, and no one can say I'm wrong.
Sweet.
So
Even
that
There's
better.
yeah,
mean, I wouldn't call it alchemy, but like apothecary stuff, like people tripping out on drugs that doesn't
Oh
exist.
yeah, that kind of stuff. Well, that
So that's
happens in
where the
our world.
fantasy
So
comes in, and like a little bit of magic with the seventh born, but
yeah,
he
the different
marketed that as
religions and
just
stuff
like
like that. Yeah, but
alternate history kind of thing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
If you like Guy Gavriel Kay, he described his books as like historical fiction with a core turn towards fantasy. So
Yeah.
Okay.
like historical fiction inspired or historical fantasy inspired by our world, basically.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'll definitely check it out.
You can definitely see the Ken influences in his writing. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
for
Just
real.
send me the link so I can order
yeah.
it.
I'll
I'll
for
put it in the
sure.
Discord.
I'll
I'll
do
put it in
Okay,
the
that.
perfect.
Discord
So
to his Goodreads and his Amazon page.
Sweet.
yeah.
And aren't you working? You're still working on the second one.
Yes,
He's
I.
like started. He's one of those writers that works on like 5 different things at once.
That's normal. Most of my friends are
No,
writers, so that's pretty normal.
it's called. I
He
have
started his little
two
western.
children, a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and
Yeah.
another one on the way, and so I have
How
no
do you have
time.
time?
Yeah, I don't have time. That's why
I have 4 younger siblings. How do you have time?
I don't. Sometimes I get up early in the morning and I have a few hours. Okay, I'll get up for everyone else and get a few words in, and then
Yeah.
they get up. Okay, I'm done for the day.
But we also discovered Crusader Kings, so I mean that
Yeah,
doesn't help.
that all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't play today. I was like, oh, let me try to write.
No, I saw him on Discord. I saw that you were playing Scrivener.
Yeah. I don't know
So I
how
think he was
to.
writing today.
Playing
Yeah.
Scrivener.
I got a couple thousand words in, so I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's more than I
there you
thought.
go.
So.
But yeah,
Did you just say you're working on a western though? That's
Oh,
like one of my favorites.
he's starting.
I have kicking around some ideas for a western. It's just a few chapters. Like, oh, that would be
Okay.
a cool idea, and how would they mix together? It's with the transcontinental railroad in the United States. So I was like, that kind of
Okay.
a neat idea to me, and it was a revolve around that. It's very up here in the ether. I haven't really done much with it, but maybe one day.
No
Like,
pressure, but
yeah.
that's my jam. Like I grew up on Tombstone, so
Oh,
I
well,
love
I
that
thought it
stuff.
was really like that the whole construction of the Transcontinental Railroad would be a great like Ken Follett style novel,
It would.
generational. Because to start, they had to load everything on the East Coast and sail down around South Africa to get all the stuff they needed on the West Coast, and then start coming like that. Right there is a story in itself. Like what happened on that voyage. And
Yeah.
all the characters, and it's just right for a story. I'm looking around like, is there someone written that? I'd read that book, but I found nothing.
I'm reading one. I'm gonna start one in May. It's a literary fiction, but it's western. It's called
Okay.
The Bullet Swallower.
The
What was
what?
it
The
called?
Bullet Swallower?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah, I
Bullet.
need to read that. Isn't that
Okay.
magical realism too?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I love westerns. The Lonesome Dove Baptist Church is in my hometown, but
I
yeah.
haven't read it, but I own Lonesome Dove. I
No,
own it.
you
Okay,
should
so in
read
my
that book.
hometown, you go like I don't know. It's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like my hometown street names. Did he? I don't know, but it's like Hat City Trail and Augustus
Okay.
Avenue, and so I don't know if it was named after the book came out or if Larry McMurtry just went full on. You know.
I love when I find like my hometown written in books. And
Yeah.
I love it so much. I'm like, because people don't. I'm originally from right outside Philly. So people
Okay.
really don't talk about Philly at all. So when I see like bars and restaurants that don't exist anymore, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, and also Bonnie and Clyde, I think, were killed right next to my hometown, town called Grapevine.
Oh,
I
wow.
think that's where they were either killed or like drove through there.
My friend was in the musical on Broadway. The Bonnie and Clyde musical on Broadway.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna read the back of the book. Matilda was a daughter, wife, and mother, but she was also an empress, the first female heir to the English crown, and a skilled military general. Kathleen Hamley provides new insight into Matilda's campaign, to claim the title of queen, her approach to allied kingdoms and rival rulers, and her crucial role in the succession crisis. I think this actually sums up the book really well. You guys don't have a back of the book to look at, but it was
Yeah.
definitely more so about the campaigns, about like siege warcraft, what she was doing inside in the control room type thing. Yeah, so I think that probably would have helped you out if you guys were able to find a physical copy, but I found this one for not that much money, and I got it in some random price. I don't even think it was the Yale University website. I just stumbled upon it, but if you go out looking for it, it's going to be like $50 for something.
Yeah, it was 45 online
Yeah.
everywhere that I looked. And the
Yeah,
audio,
I ended up
the
getting it for, like,
ebook was 25. I was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah. That's what happens with university presses
Yeah.
because they're so like niche
Yeah.
for things.
I just wish they weren't so expensive because they are so short. 99.9% of the time they are like really short, so it's not even that you're
Worth
buying
it.
an 800-page book.
Yeah.
You're buying a book that's 245 pages.
Yeah,
That's
this
for
was like
$45.
250 pages. This was
Yeah.
short, but
Yeah.
I saw one that was from like Princeton that was like 90 something about
Yeah.
the Vikings.
Well, that explains it right there, Princeton.
Yeah.
Need I say more?
Exactly.
As someone who went to their sister school, yeah, there was
What's their sister school?
Rider University.
Ryder?
Mhm.
Oh, I've never heard of that. I'll look it up.
We're right next. It's right next to Princeton, but the Princeton people act like they're better because they go to Princeton.
Yeah.
It's in a very small town in New Jersey,
Gotcha.
so they act like they're better because they go to Princeton.
Yeah.
Have you guys read anything else by this author, Catherine Hanley?
I have not.
No, I've never heard of her until. I
Yeah,
read this.
I was looking at her Goodreads, and she's got a couple other good books, or good books. I don't know, I haven't read them either, but they're on my TBR. She wrote one about 1217, which I assume has to do with William Marshall and Richard II, Magna Carta,
Yeah.
that time. So I'm definitely looking at that one.
Oh, Lioness Heart. This one.
Yeah.
Let me look at this one. When does this come out? It says 2025. Oh, it just came
Yeah,
out.
it just came out.
Parts of Joanna Plantagenet. What is that?
Ooh.
Let's see. Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine are two of the most recognizable figures of the Middle Ages. Yes. Eleanor of Aquitaine was Matilda's daughter-in-law. The lives of their sons have been examined in detail many times, but their daughters are barely known despite the influence they exerted on the world around them. Joanna, the youngest daughter, led an extraordinary life full of travel, adventure, danger, and controversy. The story is told here for the first time, and it is shelved by you, Cameron. So I'm adding that to my want to read.
Yeah. And then she's got another one coming out. She's like been on a tear. Last year was 1217, and this year she got Lioness, and then Nemesis, which is about Philip Augustus of France.
Just don't do any of her audio because it's all done by the same narrator.
The same one? Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm used to very dry stuff, and
I was like, I was really interested in what she was saying, but I'm like, I feel like I'm in a college lecture, and this is.
Oh well, I listened to
was
those
like,
for fun. So
Was from 2022. A History of France and England, 1100 to 1300. I feel like I've heard of this one before.
Yeah.
Yeah. House of Living. Now
I did find 2 documentaries on YouTube about Matilda that were.
Oh, really?
wow.
Which ones?
I'll have to send them to you. I have the YouTube links. I think they were made by somebody on YouTube, but they were interesting.
Yeah.
And they talked about like I guess they did a bunch of research using Alison Weir's works, like her nonfiction.
So, announcement. Alison Weir will be taking questions from me in July or August. Whether she's able to appear on the channel is up in the air, but we will be in contact with her from Strange Mentality Paper. So if anybody has any questions they would like to ask the great Alison Weir, just go ahead, drop in the Discord, and I will file them away to be sent in July.
Can we do fiction and nonfiction, or
Sure, I haven't read any of her fiction books.
Okay.
But
that's how I started. I didn't know she wrote nonfiction, and then I found her nonfiction.
Yeah.
But I was like, ooh.
I'm hoping to get around to reading her or listening to her Queens of the Crusades. So that starts with Aquitaine, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and then all the other ones. So I want to.
And her audiobooks are fantastic. If you like,
okay, good. A lot of them are free on Audible if you subscribe to Audible. So that's where I get a lot of them. So.
And they're really, really good.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I stepped away. Here it is. Oh, and Cameron, it's right next to this one as well. Sorry.
What?
So the book
Oh,
I was looking for, yeah,
wait.
this is
Okay.
Queens of the Conquest, the extraordinary women who changed the course of English history, 1066 to 1167. And in my email to Allison Weir, I was like, okay, fangirl request, can you write about Matilda? And she's like, I already did.
Yeah.
That's
It was
awesome.
right on the shelf camera next to this one. I
This.
just said,
Oh, come on. You
yeah,
gotta
I know.
you gotta read it. You gotta read it. That perfect for just that whole era. It's a nonfiction, but it follows a main character that's really good.
Is it
So
like
I
more
read
narrative nonfiction?
A Distant Mirror, yeah, yeah. There's a
Okay.
lot of extra stuff like cultural and sociology and stuff around it, but it all focuses
Mhm.
on one. And Barbara Tuchman is a fantastic author. I've read a couple of her books. She's
Yeah,
really
she
Never
has
heard
a
of
really
her.
Pulitzer Prize
really
for
good.
Guns of Autumn, right?
That's the whole month of August before World War I breaks out. So it's ever leading right up to it. So
What's her
was
last name?
Tuchman. Tuchman.
Tushman? Barbara Tuchman. So, yeah, this is like up there with like Life in a Medieval Castle, as far
Oh,
as
she's
like,
a journalist too. That makes it even better. As
a
someone who
little
went to
bit.
journalism school.
Mm. But if someone had to read one book about the Middle Ages, I'd probably hand that one. It's very readable, it's very thorough, and it explains everything, but it also gives it a different twist because the character they follow was a real person, but
Okay.
it takes place during the 13th century, right? 100 Years War, and
Yeah,
it,
the calamitous, so 14th century, the
it, it,
calamitous 14th
yeah,
century.
okay, yeah. He was able to straddle the alliances between because he married an English. He's French. He married an English noble woman, and he was able to basically keep his hands clean of the whole war. The whole time he was able to finagle his
Oh,
way, and he never lost face with the King of France or the King of
interesting.
England. Yeah, it was really
The
interesting
English were
perspective.
not nice to the French during the Hundred Years' War.
No, no.
Yeah, that
And
much
Yeah,
I do
you can
know.
trace
it
it.
was
You can trace it
kind
all back to Maud Matilda because it's
of,
Maud.
yep.
marrying Geoffrey and Henry
Yep,
II, and
Geoffrey of Anjou, that's who they base their claim off of, basically. That's where the claim originates. And there's the line in Henry V, what King of England, if not King of France,
Mhm.
because of the union that was continued kind of between these two.
That's just crazy to me. I think about being okay. You're a vassal of the King of France, but you also are a King of England. Like that's just not going to jive. That's just not going to jive.
And so vassals, for those who don't know, because we got guinea pig experts watching this, vassals are meant to pay towards their lord, who in this case was
King
um,
of France.
the King of France. So
Hmm.
yeah, they thought they were subjugated, which maybe they were, maybe they
Yeah,
weren't.
you'd have to send troops to when your liege lord, your vassal lord, tells you, "Hey, I'm going on campaign. Send me some money. Send some troops. Let's
And you have to.
go. You have to obey my laws." But I'm also a king, but you're also a king, and you control more of France than I do. So yeah, that's gonna be great. It's gonna work
I
out.
had the weirdest dream. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know why this is like, but it is related. I promise you. I had a dream about Claire from Outlander. So yeah, Bert, Alicia, how are you with Outlander?
I love it.
Okay, Cam has the books, but like,
Yeah, I haven't started yet.
I'm gonna reread them because I didn't. I haven't. I got up to book 4 when I first
okay,
started it.
I got up to the end of 6, and honestly, it could have just ended there and been perfectly fine. But I'll continue.
Yeah.
Um, I had a dream that Claire from Outlander had found Joan of Arc in like the treetops of a national forest, and Joan of Arc and Claire became lovers. And I don't really remember exactly like where the dream went. I just remember that Joan of Arc was not quite sure if she was a boy or a girl in this dream, and it was definitely Claire from Outlander who had fallen in love with Joan of Arc.
I
All
love it.
right.
Yeah, it was weird. But I mean, Claire's a time traveling girl, so it was. Those are the types of dreams I get, and that
But
wasn't even
who would leave Jamie Fraser? I mean, like look at the man who
Jamie
plays him. Like,
Reasonable Woman.
yeah.
I don't like Jamie.
I mean, I love the actor who plays him. I just can stare at him all day. That's fine.
What is that sound? Oh, hold on. Somehow my
It sounds like a video's playing.
Yeah, I pressed a button that I'm on a keyboard I don't normally use, so I pressed a play button, so the video that's paused in the background turned on. But yeah, it is a little crazy that a king would be a vassal to a king.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I think about it, which controls most of the land of France.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, speaking of more, because we're in the middle of the medieval section of Historathon.
Yeah.
It's the first month through it, so we can talk about more medieval books too, nonfiction and fiction. But one book I am very much hoping to read this year for Historathon is the new. Let me get it real quick. Is the new Henry V biography by Dan Jones. And so
Okay, so it is a biography. I wasn't sure if it was historical fiction because that author has written historical fiction before.
He did. He wrote Essex Dogs, that trilogy, which I have and will probably read soon. But yeah,
those covers are so pretty.
Yes. No, he's a nonfiction author mostly. That was his first
Okay.
fiction. So I've got two pretty short ones, Summer of Blood and the Magna Carta, Birth of Liberty. I also read The Plantagenets by him, most of it. I didn't finish it. But I often say he's one of my favorite historical nonfiction writers, but I've never finished a book by him. But I do like his writing. It's just like one of those things where I put down the book and I just like don't pick it back up. But I have a very big mental block when it comes to the Magna Carta for some reason. It's like I don't exactly know what it was for, and I can't. People tell me it was a thing, and it just doesn't stick. So basically, as far as I know, it was the origin of the whole nobody's above the law type thing, but it also had something to do with the barons, and the difference between a baron and a count and an earl kind of confuses me a little bit too. Like, as far as Crusader kings goes, barons are earls, so yet they have a lot of control. Like, I don't get it. I'm very confused. But I will be quite honest and say that Crusader kings taught me more about the feudal system than, private school ever did. So there's that. Mic drop. Don't waste your money. Just buy Crusader kings.
Yeah. Waste your time instead. Or invest your time instead.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, this is a biography, and it's his newest book.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah. So also another one I have from him is Power and Thrones: A New History of the Middle Ages. I don't have the Crusaders. I have the Templars on ebook. Same with the War of the Roses, and then has the last book in the Essex Dogs trilogy come out?
Let's see. I know I just want to buy the books from the UK because they're so pretty.
Let me see. Lionheart's a novel. Oh, my computer's being slow.
I think he has a podcast, doesn't he? It's like This Is History or something. And he talks about...
Oh, he's younger than I thought he would be.
It comes out this year on September 23rd. How old is he?
43.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why I just automatically think of like historians as like old men.
Well,
in my head,
old.
He's written a lot.
Yeah, man, he's 43.
Yeah, for a 43-year-old, he's pretty prolific. Alison Weir is like 70-something.
No, she's not. Is she really?
Yeah. Yeah, she is.
Wow. No judgment. I just, like, in my head, I thought of her as, like, in her
40s.
40s, yeah. Like, younger.
73.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old's Philippa Gregory?
Probably around the same age.
Yeah.
I've read a ton of her books.
The same.
Oh my gosh. Philippa Gregory is my
I love her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's 71.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started with the other
book. She has a new book coming out. She has a new book coming out. The
Boleyn
Trader.
has a new book coming out.
Yeah. Let's see.
I'm so behind in all her books, but I love them when I read them all.
Oh, I finished the whole Tudor and Plantagenet series by her. I don't know if this one's going to be a
I
part.
did all the White Queen, Red Queen, all those.
Yeah, I read
in
Red
high
Queen
school and
this
college.
beginning of this year. It's
It's
really
coming
good.
out in October 2025. So like those, she had her like War of the Roses series, and then she had her Tudor Court, but then she just like kept writing and then mushed them all together. So they're all these.
Yeah.
I'm just like, for some reason, King Henry VIII, King Henry VII, like I can read all about it all day long.
Oh,
It's just
do it.
fascinating.
Have you seen the White Princess miniseries?
Yes.
It's great. I
I
love it.
didn't watch the Elizabeth one because everyone told me I would get mad, so don't watch it.
Which one?
Becoming Elizabeth.
Oh no, I
They
haven't
said
seen that.
they said it was really bad because it basically portrayed Elizabeth as
Which one?
conniving as a 12-year-old.
Which Elizabeth is what I'm asking.
Elizabeth, oh sorry, Elizabeth the First.
Oh, okay.
They were basically saying that she wanted this older man to do things to her,
Oh,
and
her
she was
stuff.
she was like 10 years old. I'm like, ugh, can we not?
Oh, Thomas Seymour. That guy,
Yeah.
her father. No.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What I
And I was
didn't.
like,
Okay, so the miniseries with the White Princess, as opposed to the book, the miniseries is very much the Tudors killed the princess in the tower.
Yep.
Whereas the book doesn't like go so far.
yeah.
And the portrayal of Elizabeth of York in the book is not necessarily flattering. It's like you can kind of take your own approach. She's just a very kind of like smooth, simple figure, whereas in the miniseries, freaking the woman who plays Villanelle, like, took her to another level. Like,
Yeah.
which is probably not what she was like in her life. She probably wasn't that cool, but it is what it is. It's
And the
Hollywood.
king was played by Jeremy Irons' son.
No, that was the White Queen,
Yeah,
not
that
the
one.
White
Ugh,
Princess.
the White
Yeah.
Queen. Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
Jeez. I
Cam has
prefer the
feelings
Red
on that.
Queen. I
So
prefer the Red
the
Queen.
White Princess is about her daughter.
The
Yeah.
daughter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and also the lady Catelyn Stark, she was Margaret Beaufort in
Yeah.
The White Princess.
I wonder who portrayed her because I like Margaret Beaufort. I like her portrayal in the Red Queen. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
the White Queen goes all the way through the Red Queen. The White Queen novel stops at a really weird moment.
Yeah, they do kind of stop weirdly sometimes.
You know. So you've read what was the last one you read?
Something Tides. It was a blue cover.
Oh,
That was the
yeah.
last one.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
that's
very
not-
behind. I am very behind.
Tidelands.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I haven't read that one yet, but I read her like 13 book series. That was my big goal in 2023 was to finish the series. And my favorite was actually about Anne Neville, who is Richard III's wife. Yeah, that was my favorite. But
I'll have
that
to.
and
been
the
so
Red
long.
Queen and the White Queen
Yeah.
are all part of the White Queen miniseries. So yeah.
Alrighty.
So we've been going for an hour. Is there any last words we'd like to say before I run out and get dinner? So
Bon
I think
appetit.
I think we should end. Was Matilda successful? Whatever that word successful means to you, you can answer. Was she successful? So we'll give it a little bit of time.
I mean, her bloodline continued. I mean, in the book, it said that every person that sat on the throne can trace their lineage back to Maud. So
And that's
I'd
pretty
say,
badass.
that wins. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I
I'd
would
say
definitely say she was successful. Maybe she didn't get what she wanted, but she wanted
got
to
the
rule
next
England
best
under her
thing.
own right, which she didn't get the chance to do. But in the long run, her legacy definitely is cooler and more significant than
Mhm.
Stevens.
I wish there was more written about her. Like, I'm more curious now than
Yeah.
like
I
I
wonder if
feel
maybe
like this book should have been longer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe that we just don't know enough about her because
Yeah.
it
In the
was
two
so
document in the two documentaries that I have, I'll put them in the Discord. There was said that there was written like chronicle tales about her, but like the person who wrote them passed away and they never were found.
Oh, interesting.
And or people that didn't like her burn them. There's two options.
Could
I could see either.
yeah, it could be that, or it could just be, this was 900 years ago. It was a long time, and she was pretty preoccupied with trying to win a war.
Yeah.
That, yeah. And don't forget the people who were the publishers back then with the church, and they were not on her side.
Exactly.
Yeah. Except when they were, and then they weren't.
I'm going to
Stephen's
say
brother.
they were most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. But Stephen's brother flip flops back and forth.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I still recommend When Christ and His Saints Slept.
Yes.
It adds a lot. It adds some character, some more flavor to other auxiliary characters surrounding Matilda. So you get some more in that, which was nice. And the names aren't nearly as confusing. Like Matilda,
That was going to be my question.
yeah. Matilda is Stephen's wife, but Maud is Empress Maud.
Yeah,
Like
they
it's
refer to
always
her as Maud.
That was the biggest thing for me. I was like, because they kept on flipping back and forth depending on the
It
page you
doesn't
were
say
on.
where did she get that nickname? That's what I'm curious about.
It doesn't say, and I would like to know.
I'm gonna go to babynames.com real quick and find the origin of that name.
What was the title of the book?
I have to
Is it
sign off
Latin?
here. I have to put my kids to bed. So this is I want to say thank you for having me on, but I have to
All
go
right, he's
help my
gotta go.
wife.
So, let's see. It's French, so who knows? So I guess it's not German, but all right, guys, that will end our live stream. He's got to go take care of his babies. I'm a little hungry, so we will say goodbye and hope that Maud got some attention that she very much deserves.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so I'm gonna end the stream, and we get to sit here awkwardly for a couple seconds.